We are now filming.
Did you make it there, Skillet?
I'm going to try.
Right.
Talk about
I'll tell you what.
This will go on the fucking blooper reel.
Here we are.
Which should just be all of them.
It should be.
Hello, welcome to the welcome to the Calling All Heroes Comics podcast. I am George Davis, and I am snuggled impressively between Tim
I'm
and
uncomfortable.
Walls.
This makes me uncomfortable.
And Donnie's over
Fur
here
hat.
with the Wookiee hat.
Yeah.
And then Mr. Gary Kramer off to the side, who's less than impressed with our stellar production values this morning.
Or white
That's looking
snake.
pretty chippy. Yeah.
Or White
Or white
Snake.
snake.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah.
Y'all just missed it. He's like, don't go see that. It sucks. Oh, really? What'd you see? I've never have.
Never
They
have.
suck.
Never been there.
I just
Sucks so
know
bad.
they do.
Sucks so
He's
bad,
right,
I'm not
though.
going.
You didn't wait to hear the explanation.
All right.
No,
all
he's right.
Well, since we caught everybody up, maybe you could provide it this time.
Just watch YouTube.
Okay.
Ah.
Oh, there you go. That's
You
fair.
will be disappointed.
All right.
Well, here we
Or
are.
maybe you won't be disappointed.
I'm not sure how to go
'Cause
from.
you'll be like, oh, that's terrible.
Disappointing YouTube videos on Whitesnake.
Here, I was going to say, here's the worst
Said
segue
nobody
ever from bashing Whitesnake to the loss of Stan the Man Lee.
Yeah.
Just happened the other day. Super sucks. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's really all you can say about that part. But
Yeah.
Tim, why don't you start us out?
Oh, well, I brought a little bit of show and tell. You know, everybody has their memories of Stan Lee and, you know, what he means to them. But, you know, when you're like a 4 or 5 year old kid and you're looking through a comic book, now this obviously isn't the one that, you know, I was looking for. But, yeah, he's taught, this is a back issue, 1974 superheroes reprint Hulk action. So, but in the back, you know, the before, they don't even have this anymore. It's like the, you know, the bullpen bulletin thing.
Mhm.
Okay, and in the back, you know, every time there was every issue there was a Stan Lee soapbox, and he just gets, you know, he talks about just random stuff. Sometimes it's about books, you know, and it varies. Like his topics, you know, he didn't even go to racism. I mean, there's even like stuff where
Yeah.
he just, you know, touches upon like everything that, you know, matters to everybody else, not just
social
comic books,
commentary.
not just comic books. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, I was looking through. I was trying to find one that was talking about the Spider-Man TV show, like in 1977. I couldn't find that one. I looked through like hundreds of books, but I did find this one, and he's talking about the Electric Company in children's television,
Yeah.
and about how Spidey was,
Spidey
gonna
was
be
on the
there.
electric company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how he was going to be on there, and this is just the beginning of great things. And it's just like, you know, when I was that age, I'm like, oh, they're going to be in the movies. It's going to be a movie. You know, we had to wait till what, like 2002, 2003,
Yeah.
to finally get for the CGI to catch up with what, you know. But anyway, it's just cool. I'd harken back to my little, you know, 5, 6 year old mind reading this, and then saying, you know, hey mom, you know, Spider-Man's going to be on Electric Company. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
So,
That's cool.
to my 5-year-old self.
Yeah.
So, looking back, thanks Stan, you know, and just like the whole Marvel universe. I mean, he didn't create the whole thing, but you know, he was a huge part of it. And you know, you can point fingers, you know, go back to all the whole Kirby, you know, Ditko and all that stuff. But you know what? Bottom of the line, look at all we got to look at.
Yeah. And Gary put it best the other day when we were talking, when he said, there's a lot of people obviously that are responsible, but none of this happens without Stan.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
he's the piece of the puzzle that you have to have.
Well, I told you, he's the one driving the bus, and
Yeah.
the bus is full of raw talent.
Yeah.
But without him, this doesn't happen.
Exactly.
Because
The
all
bus
these
doesn't make it to the stadium.
well, all these great, you know, from Gil Kane, Colin, obviously Kirby, Ramita came a little bit later on, senior. But all these, well, we see a lot of it right here. Tuska, a lot of these guys were working, and they weren't exactly setting the world on fire, including Kirby. You know, he'd been working for 2
Yeah.
decades before.
Gene Colan
FF.
too. Gene Colan was
Yeah.
doing like horror titles. And
Yeah,
it was,
yeah.
It's not the fact their work was bad in any way, shape,
No.
or form.
some of the
wasn't
early
catching-
stuff's great
Right.
actually.
Yeah. But
Yeah, Marie
it's-
Severin.
Ditko?
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of these guys coming from EC and other, was it Atlas time, you know,
Yeah.
which became Marvel and stuff.
It
And
was failing. It was sinking. It
Yeah.
was a sinking ship. Dallas, you know.
so, like I said, there's a lot of great coaches, a lot of great directors, and everything else, and you can sit there and you can compare Stanley to a great director. You know,
Yeah.
the talents, you know, the John Waynes. It don't matter who you're talking about and stuff. DiCaprio. Doesn't matter who Tom Cruise. It don't matter who's on the screen. If you have a bad director, you have a bad movie. And
Well-
Stanley was the essence. He was the spirit, as you said right there. As you were the excitement. He was the spirit of Marvel.
Yeah.
And like I said, Kirby stuff after that, all these guys that we talked about, their stuff after that just falls flat without the flair of Stan Lee.
Well, he promoted it with excitement.
Right.
Like he really promoted it with
Yeah,
excitement.
it makes you
Till
feel
the
like
end.
you're part of it.
Yeah, and he,
Yeah.
and, yeah,
Made
Transfer of
everyone feel-
enthusiasm.
Yes.
Yeah, this wasn't something that happened in the 70s. This is Stan Lee. This is how he is.
Yeah.
This is Stan Lee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's forever.
It might be a secret, but I'm a big Fantastic Four fan.
Say it isn't so.
Yeah, but the first time I found out who Stan Lee was, I was like 6, and it was the Incredible Hulk cartoon and Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. And every episode he introduced, remember with the narration, "This is Stan Lee,"
Yeah.
and then he'd give that little speech. And I mean, I always just you had a built-in rapport with him already, and I knew about that before I knew about the comics. And so then, like, I remember looking at one going, "Oh, Stan, the same guy that does the introductions."
This is
and
it. Yeah.
putting that together when I was like 10 or 11 years old.
Yeah.
And my impression is that I never got to meet him. My impression of everything I've ever seen is that he was very approachable, and he was, and from a lot of the, just comments from different, classic artists and talents that worked with him, they're like, Stan was always just sort of like that guy you could, go up and talk to, or he would, if he was in a room, people, he would be entertaining. He had a good personality and was an entertaining guy and knew how to entertain, knew how to be a salesman. I think.
Yeah.
He was just, and I'm saying that in a good way.
Sure,
a lot of
sure.
people, salesmen are like, no, Stan could sell himself, and he did a really good job.
But I don't think all the interviews I've ever heard or read, should I say, no one's ever put down Stanley as a backstabbing, this or that, ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was caught in between. He was a company guy whenever the whole thing with Kirby, which had been the mid to latter part of the 80s, he was caught in the middle. He's a company guy. And he never said he created all those things himself.
He would always be the first one
Right.
to tell you co-creator, not
Yeah.
creator.
Yeah.
Right. So the argument was always between a company, a corporation called Marvel, and the Kirby estate. And Stan just had to sit it out and stuff. He really couldn't, he couldn't go on there and say, hey, this is.
I guess my only thing is a lot of times when when you hear about the Kirby Ditko thing is Stan says he doesn't understand. I think the reality of it really was that Stan was put in a pretty bad spot.
He was.
That's the way I look at it. I think Stan was put in a bad spot, and he didn't know he didn't have anywhere to turn. I don't think he did. I mean, I've always supposed, well, couldn't he have lobbied for them to, those guys to get, better money and things like that? But, who do I know? Maybe the company was saying, look, this is the way it is. You know what? This is the way it's going to be.
And I think that's what the
and
company said.
it makes sense. And to me, after all the stuff I've seen, that is what makes sense. Because I can remember being a young guy with angst. And as much as I love Kirby and Ditko and a lot of those old artists, I mean, love those guys. I was really like, what? I sort of thought Stan wasn't a good guy, And then when you get
We've had
older,
those conversations.
when you get older and you come to learn about business and things like that, you know what? I'm more leaning towards the fact and almost 100% believing that he was just put in a bad place. But because because I'm like, why does he keep saying, I still don't know why Steve left? I think he has a hard time rectifying it himself. I think he has a hard time, saying I really couldn't do anything about that. As
Well,
much as
in
I
the
probably wanted to do it.
Well, in the years, here's Ditko being a total recluse from everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
Not only Stan, but
Yeah.
The world.
yeah.
And my guess is
Howard
he
Hughes
didn't
and
start
comics.
that
Yeah.
when he left. My guess is that's because I think
No.
a lot of artists
Oh,
are.
Ditko was like that from the beginning.
It's like
that was his personality.
if you have a professional baseball team, and is the coach supposed to be going for the players to get them more money? And do they know all the intricate workings of their particular financial contract? And I think maybe that's where it is. It's that combination of looking at Stan like, I know when I was younger, I thought Stan owned all this. He's in charge. He's Vince McMahon in the sense that whatever he says goes on every one of these books. And I mean, I learned when I got a little older that wasn't the case. But I think part of that was how I put that on there. Like, why didn't he take care of these guys better? And the reality is, they're grown men that, I might not have ever spoken to him about that. Like, I watched this thing about Seinfeld, and they said they did all those shows, but they never once went out and hung out. They never went out to dinner together because it's just work. And so, as much as Stan pushes that idea that it's the bullpen and they're all buddies and join our friend, our
that's
platoon of buddies, they might never have spoken once the clock,
Yeah.
Well,
once they checked
I-
it
I've
out.
heard
think
stories that
Kirby-
they were
Kirby and
somewhat
Senate.
social, though. I mean,
Kirby and Senate rarely ever. Maybe once or twice, maybe.
Yeah.
Met.
Yeah.
The great inker of FF.
His work was just
Yeah.
turned over to him. It was sent to okay, now it's your turn. Basically, they didn't they collaborated, but not together, so to speak.
I want to put a link on the end of this podcast. You showed me that clip of Senate drawing Thor in like a minute or whatever.
Mhm.
That's great. That's good stuff.
Okay, we'll put a furry face over here on the spot, since because I'd say that we were all around when it was all going down in the late '80s, and we saw Neil Adams and Frank Miller and all these guys fight for Kirby. And of course, what he wanted was his artwork back, and they did not want to give it to him unless he signed off on all creative rights on everything. And he was still alive at the time, and a lot of the big artists were going to bat for him. And what was your take years later? What did you hear? What do you think about all that?
Well, when I first got into this whole scene, this media, Jack Kirby died early '90s.
Yeah, 92.
92.
So I was a year
92.
old when he died. So
Right.
Yeah.
by the time this stuff became a thing, a part of my life, Stan Lee was all there was. Jack Kirby was dead, and then Steve Ditko was 20, 30 years into his reclusiveness.
Yeah,
Mhm.
There was
nowhere
just-
to be found.
Yeah, there was just Stan Lee, so that's all I saw. That's all
Yeah.
I knew. It wasn't until much later I started learning, the artists, Kirby, Ditko, and all that. And my take is pretty similar to you guys. It was because I remember my first exposure to Stan Lee I was 8 years old,
Great.
and I had a Spider-Man video game for the PS1, and he was the narrator. First level opens up just Spider-Man co-creator Stan Lee here, and he's the narrator through the whole game. It was great, and that was my first exposure to Stan Lee. And even looking at first exposure, he said co-creator. So as I got older and I learned, the whole story and the history and everything, my position is pretty much the same as you guys. Stan would always be the first guy he would be the first one to tell you, I didn't do this by myself. So I always just saw it as just Marvel shortchanging a lot of talented people, which unfortunately is the norm in this business even today.
Well, and
Well,
also,
it was the argument that was work for hire.
Yeah.
They're
Well-
sitting down because Kirby, and he come from the was it Simon and Kirby, where I read in an interview it was pencil down, don't erase, head down, keep drawing, just go, just keep drawing. And they said sometimes that's why Hulk had three fingers, or someone had 2 left feet.
Yeah.
They literally just head down and drawing all day long, and that's what Kirby did.
well, and I think too with Stan, I mean, is there an argument there that he how much bigger did this get because of him? I mean, he's self-branded in a lot of ways, but to say it's like, oh well, I was paying attention a little more after Kirby died, but I would argue that Kirby was in the mainstream or in our faces as much after he died as beforehand. You guys were there. I mean, was Jack Kirby somebody you heard from on any level the way you hear from Stan? I mean, Stan was on that stuff
no.
all the way
He
back from the
was-
'60s up. Stan Lee, you heard his voice, you read his
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
No,
Did you ever
Jack-
hear anything from
no.
Jack? Like, the argument could be made that from a public standpoint, he was dead from the first day.
Well, the biggest thing is what Marvel turned the corner was obviously their neurotic Spider-Man, all this kind of stuff. And they said from the beginning, comic books have been around for what, 20, 25 years, and the FF and Spider-Man show up, and comic books change,
Yeah.
and they change forever, and you can't tell me that that's the artist.
Well,
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I think Stan's his
Let's take on it.
his whole take on a superhero giving him real problems, which was where Marvel came from in the early '60s. That, in my opinion, is Stan Lee, and I don't think anybody's ever argued that.
What really changed my tune was before FF and Spidey. I collect 50s horror too, Atlas stuff, primarily Atlas horror. And I go through those now, look, and like every other story is written by Stan Lee. So I used to be, I'm like going, I don't know how much Stan, and I'm looking at this going, well, the guy did a lot before it became successful for the company that was dying, before it became Marvel Comics. Before, he was doing an awful lot of writing. I go through these everywhere, Stan Lee. I'm like going, I started to soften on the whole thing. I'm like going,
And of course, to be a little critical of Stan Lee, after all that stable of artists moved on, he never really created anything.
Right.
Really, In other words, to me, it's always that alchemy. It's that perfect team.
Yeah.
It's having that great coach and
co-creation
great
is right. It's,
it's the everyone meeting at the same place, same time, on the same page and stuff, and that's what I think happened with Marvel. Because, like I said, Stan, he did those couple, was it Amalgamate? What are those one
The
book.
amalgam books.
Yeah, and no one's ever said anything. Hey, you've got to read this
How
book.
about Ravage?
And, you know,
Yeah, Ravage 29.
No.
so like I said, not to put down Stan or anything, but he was with some great artists, and without those great artists and great ideas,
I wonder, do you think there's an argument to be made, though, that it was the approach Stan took? I mean, he basically gave those guys the basic idea of what he wanted to do, the outline. They would draw, then he would go back and fill the story. And I think as time went on, that style of doing it, I mean, he was no longer really in charge. I think that it became more of, no, you write us a story and then we'll have our guys draw it. Maybe that process changed. And
True.
one could say that had they let him revert back to the process that he'd always done, which admittedly might not have been fair to the artists, but if he did it that way with newer artists, maybe there would have been stuff created a little better. Maybe they messed with the magic formula.
My
is what I'm saying.
understanding with Ditko was it was sort of like that. You know, Stan fleshed it out, and after a while, he sort of let Steve run with it, and Steve started feeling that the character needed to be developed in a certain way, and Stan was okay with it until my understanding is that he wanted the Goblin just to be a nobody. He didn't want the Goblin to be Norman Osborn. He just wanted the Goblin to be somebody off the street nobody knows. And Stan was like, "No, it's got to be, it's got to be somebody tied into this, into this world." And I mean, but that was after he had let Steve, sort of embellish and do what he wanted to do. And they said, but once it was identified that the Goblin was going to be Norman Osborn, he was just like, that's not the way I want to do it. That's not my vision. That was part of the break, I know, in that anyway.
Well, the way I see it, and we've talked about music and stuff in here also. The Rolling Stones are 50 plus years into their career, but
50?
50 plus, yeah.
Might be 60 now. I don't know.
It might be, but my point being is they haven't had a hit in 30 years, and
Some
all
last
of
good
their
album.
stuff, why they fill the stadiums, was all done within a 10, 12, 15 year period. And when I'm going backwards with the Marvel Universe, within from 61 to early 70s, you had about everything. You know what I mean? About everything was created in that very short time. So these guys were on fire, just like a band is, where they put out their best stuff, and then after that.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I agree with you 100%, especially on the music. But I also wonder if it's the fact that the audience gets so fractured. The audience gets so fractured. Like we said it before about the Beatles. Everybody was watching Sullivan that night. Everybody was on board. Mm-hmm. And then when you get to the point where you have 500 channels, and now you have anything you want to watch anytime you want to watch it on a device in your pocket, there's never going to be another Beatles, even if somebody comes along, if a group comes along that's 10 times better than them. Like that's never going to happen again. And it's kind of the same with this. They didn't have the baggage that gets carried with having all these characters living for the last 50 years. They were, I mean, I'm not taking anything away from it. It was amazing. And I think it all happened right in that moment. But the stadium's filled with people because I don't think there's a big enough audience for the new stuff that can still come together. Does that make sense?
Well, Image tried, and look where they're at now.
Yeah.
I mean, they're a successful company.
Right.
But they came out and all those, was it 8 creators?
Yeah.
7 or 8.
7 or 8.
7 or 8. And look, 90% I know you're a big Spawn fan, but 90% of their creations are nowhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Nowhere.
Do you count Portacio since he was there once a year?
I'll take his work once a year over Valentino's work every month.
Oh yeah.
He did some work on Spawn too.
Savage Garden's
He's just
still
never
around,
been
but-
consistent.
Yeah,
But
He's just good.
it's not lighting up anybody's
Yeah.
reading list.
Right.
Savage Dragon is just.
Yeah. I will tell you right now, and I'm going to defend it to the hilt. Spawn's going to hit 300,
It is.
and it's worth reading. It's worth to me. It's
I
worth
enjoy it.
reading every
Yeah,
month.
I
It's
give it every
really
month.
good.
Yeah.
It's a really good.
But I mean, those guys made national news when they did that.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Something on the screen
You
out there.
know.
Oh, wait away. There's something on the screen that scared me.
It's there.
Something out there on the wing.
This, you know what? Though this, I brought this little thing in. I'll get it over with here because the monster books though before superheroes, the pre-hero monsters is what I was into because I got into comics in the early '70s when Marvel was already established and they were reprinting these old Atlas stories. And I remember I was just talking to you. We went up to Ides in Pittsburgh, and this was the first. This is a Tales to Astonish 7. No back cover, tape down the side, $3.50.
Nice.
It was the first real pre-hero book I ever bought. And I remember I was thinking, people talk about selling things. I wouldn't sell this for anything. But the reason why I was interested in this stuff was Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, and Steve Ditko. And I have to definitely say Stan Lee, because the story says, written by Stan Lee. that is the thing that got me into comic books, you know, altogether. I dug that out the other day. I was just thinking, you know, that era, that you know, it's gone now. You know, Stan, I could hold on to it for a little bit. You know, it's like, I mean, you know, have the books, you know, but it just, you look back and reflect on your life thinking, man, I'm getting older and our heroes are dying now. You know,
It's been a
That
bad
sucks.
year. It's been a bad year,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, what I really don't like is
It's a loss.
Steven, or, you know, Ditko and Stan the same year. You know, that's crazy.
A couple months apart.
I notice it a lot with wrestling that I something I hate. It's like my childhood heroes are not only getting older, but they're starting to move on. You know, they're passing away, and they're being replaced with guys that are younger than I am. And that's just it's like I can't be less interested in that.
It's hard to process. That.
You know what I mean?
Well,
I
at
think,
Comic Con, you get signatures from guys that are like, wait, this guy's like 10 years younger.
Well,
than I
there
am,
was a
man.
guy on Monday Night Raw last week that got on there and he was talking to Ric Flair and he said, "You know, I never watched you wrestle because I'm 19 years old, but my father thought you were his hero." And I'm like, oh man, like Ric Flair was in a ring like 3 or 4 years ago, and there's a guy talking to him that's saying his father thought he was like the greatest thing ever. And I'm like, oh, that's rough. And I was like, oh wait, that's me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the whole thing with Stanley and the Kirby, the whole argument, it was more of let's fight for Kirby, less of let's put Stan down and put him in a bad position.
Right.
But he was there, so he could.
It was an unfortunate side effect.
Yeah.
Right, and I think that's one thing we got to look at. Is it wasn't that campaign was never anti Stanley. It
Right.
was Marvel first, Kirby.
Yeah.
And Stanley was there. He had like a star witness.
Yeah.
It's like I don't want any parts of this. You're gonna have parts of this, you know. He was caught in the middle.
I think everybody's Facebook's pretty personalized, and I don't know about you guys, but mine has just been flooded with people with pictures of Stan and, like, you know, just different stuff like celebrating him and memorials and stuff. But then a lot of photos, like where he's posing with people, and I don't know, you know, it's. I also see that a lot, like when there's like a wrestler or something that passes away, that people will show all the pictures. But it's been nothing compared to how much just positive stuff. I haven't read anything negative about him at all.
Well, he was available.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
met
he
him.
just stopped doing
You met him.
signings. You know, he just stopped doing signings here, what, a couple months ago?
Yeah.
Did you get to meet him, Gary? Did you ever meet him?
87.
So 2 out of 5 of us got to meet him.
I've seen him. I've seen it like, you know,
Back
oh, there
behind
he is
the
over
curtain.
there. Yeah. No, the one time I was like looking at people standing. I'll never forget. I think it was we were in Pittsburgh, and we get it there. That shows 10 o'clock. I go inside and there's this roped off line, and there's like 500-600 people there. It's only like 5 after 10.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's going on here? That's Stan's line already. Stan wasn't coming to 1 o'clock.
Wow.
It was crazy, and I can remember being in the convention, and I heard this, wow, like Notre Dame scored a touchdown. And I look at my watch, and it's 1 o'clock. Stan must have got in there because the place erupted. I was, it was in another part of the the con. I could hear this like huge roar, like, oh, that's crazy. It was Stan made it. It was great.
When
It was nuts.
I saw him in 2010, and after, I mean, I've told you guys the story, and I've told it on here repeatedly, but after, like, I got to meet him and everything, we got a picture with him and stuff, and, we were basically supposed to vamoose, and we pieced out the, I guess it would have been, I'm trying to think of how that played out. I guess it was the following year that he was there, he was able to get up and walk away. Maybe it was 2 years later, but I'm standing out looking through comics, and you hear everybody cheering, and he comes through. When you enter that con, the Pittsburgh con, if you go to the very back right-hand corner, you can go into that room where like the signatures are and everybody does all that. That little doorway. He comes out, and I look up, and I just wish I had a picture of it because he's walking, and he's so thin, but he's like really happy, and there are people around him getting him where he's got to go. But there's just this mob of people behind him, like smiling, and they're dressed, people that don't look like Thor but are in Thor costumes, and just every type of diverse, it was just like this legion of people following him and in support of everything he did. And I just remember like that was the greatest scene ever.
That's cool.
Yeah. It was really neat.
Well, it must be nice to stick around long enough to have all those accolades, that come your way,
Sure.
Did you guys see the last interview he did? I
You
posted
shared it. Yeah, I watched it.
It was like a minute and a half long. If you get a chance to watch it, it was filmed, I think they said 48 hours before he died. It was the last thing that he said, and it was basically just thanking all the fans for everything they'd done for him and how important it was to him and everything. It was really, really cool. Like, what a way to go out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Soda.
But at 95 years
No
old,
joking.
I think we put a lid on that and say that's a hell of a life.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, you called me. I was outside, so I wasn't even. You know, George told me on the phone. I'm like, I came in the house and Sandy's like, "Did you hear?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Well, you know, he led a full life." And I'm like, "Thanks, honey." Yeah. So George told me, and my wife was consoling me, and I call that a win.
Yeah, I called you. I called Gary. I tried to call Walls. I was like,
I was unfortunately at the hospital, reflecting on my mom and stuff too. I'm thinking about this stuff. It's hit me pretty hard too.
Absolutely.
With stuff that's going on there, and life is precious. Enjoy every moment you can. And squibbling over politics and arguing over stupid stuff or whatever, I'm taking a new approach because it's just, life is way too short. Way too short.
I agree.
Read more comics.
Read more comics.
Read more comics.
Eat more chicken.
pick him up at the Calling All Heroes comic shop. We're-
Yeah. Let's how can we
open
spin
Wednesday
this?
through Saturday, noon
Yeah.
to 5.
Yeah.
I'll put on my Stan hat for a moment as the salesman and say,
Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go.
make sure you guys stop by here.
You got to make everything rhyme. Start with the same letter.
Excelsior patrons, come and buy my comic books.
Good times.
Yes.
Well, what else can we talk about today, gang? It's been a while. I looked to see if we had any comments, and most of them were, what do you guys think about Stan? And are you ever doing a podcast again? That was,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Where you
it was-
been?
Yeah, if you ever do a podcast again, can you talk about
yeah.
something?
Could you talk
Could
about
you
some-
mention Stan?
Let's see if we can fit it in the schedule.
I was looking up on the wall at the newest books there. How about the latest issue with Batman and the Max? Improved a little bit over the first one?
Didn't look at
Did
it.
you look at it? You need to take a look at
Yeah,
it.
number 2 I thought was a little
I
better.
think it's a little better.
I still don't know what the hell's going on, but
Well, it's
I,
because
don't-
the same
I
Keith.
think you'll
You're-
find 4 issues and you still
the same
won't know.
Keith, you'll never know.
Well,
what's
you
going on.
you caused me to go up and look at it, and it did look. The art didn't look as empty as the first issue.
I'll tell you what.
That's a great word for it.
Kelly Jones,
Yeah,
Batman King of Fears. That latest issue.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
I got to tell you what's still tearing it up. Venom is still tearing it up. That storyline keeps growing and getting better. I really, really like it. I keep thinking there's going to be a letdown this year. It's going to slow down a little bit. Keeps moving.
Still climbing.
Keeps
Yeah.
The
moving.
Immortal Hulk.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's pretty
another
great.
great read.
All chopped
Yeah.
up, all those pieces.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
That was cool. That whole
Yeah, just-
recon. That was
He's like,
neat.
just see if I could do it.
Yeah.
You know, how they were saying or whatever. They're like, he just let himself get cut up to see if he could put himself back together. And like, wow, what's going on here? You know?
That was cool.
Like how it kind of censored the middle finger. He's like, "Oh, really? Gonna go there? You gonna do that?"
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
pretty good.
And I really enjoyed the last issue of Fantastic Four.
Yeah, I'm going to go into a Peter Griffin. You know what really grinds my gears? Fantastic Four.
Here we go.
The first
Down the
2 or
rabbit
3
hole.
or 4 pages, and then all of a sudden they get a different artist to do another 5 or 6 pages. Then they go back to the original artist. Did you pick up on that?
Yeah, I like the story though. I'm focused on the story. I like the story.
I feel like one has to focus on the story
Yes.
to justify $4 for that book. I love it, and I did enjoy the story, but I'm just like, first of all, I wouldn't hit a dog in the ass with that Spider-Man they drew on the first page. That might have been the worst Spider-Man I've ever seen. Then they have a close-up of Spider-Man talking to Franklin, and it looks like Spider-Man. Then they go back at the end. It's like, not bad enough that you guys can't just do, like, whoever's doing the cover does the inside. It's this beautiful painted cover, and you already know it's not going to be that.
Yeah.
Then you open it, you're like, oh, okay. Then you flip, and it's like progressively jumps into something that's somehow worse.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, the art. Yeah, you're sitting there going, if it's not the FF, and I'm really trying to give this. You know, the story is
I like the story.
interesting, but this art is not something. Another issue of this, and I'm going.
You know what? Well, and
I've suffered through some bad art though. If the story, I will do that if the story maintains.
my
itself.
other thing is the fact that I'm waiting for this CGC copy of the 1/1000 Fantastic Four #1 to come back, and if this book tanks early, I'm not going to be able to sell it for some grossly overpriced amount of money.
Why don't you
No.
have that back?
I don't know. I messaged them.
I've
I'm
had
like,
mine for like 2 or 3 weeks.
I know.
And we were there. You were a day ahead of me.
Yeah, and I paid for it online ahead of time and had everything squared away. It's a bunch of nonsense. Who do we talk to about that? I already sent him a message. I'm like, hey, my buddy already got his.
What's
And we
the
were there the
holdup?
same damn day.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Well, you're just
Try
going
to
to
bring-
wait your turn, sir.
yeah, I'm gonna try to bring the anger down.
Just trying to live your life. You know, comic book world. Sounds like a first world problem to me.
Yeah, I guess.
I didn't. And I didn't pay anything special. I just did the basic rate. So that's I didn't,
See, I paid for Express. Express.
That's another thing, like everything else in this planet, how expensive it's getting.
Yeah.
You know, CGC. So I said I'd like to send a couple of them, and you were giving me prices. You know, it cost me $120 to send out a Silver Age book. I'm like, man, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Unless you're planning on selling it back to somebody, no, it's not worth it half the time.
I'm not. But you know, but curiosity gets the best of you. You're like, I mean, I can grade a comic book, but
You want the official.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm not paying $120 to get a book.
I think before it's said and done, they're going to have this thing down where they say, okay, when you go to Comic-Con, go to the CGC booth, and if you don't want it actually like slabbed and graded, we'll have our official graders there that will tell you what it would grade for, and that is only $10. That way, the folks that do just want to know can know
Yeah.
without having to pay to get it
They're
slabbed.
gonna give me a COA or give me a certificate of some kind that says they graded this at a
For $10, they're
So
like,
why so
sorry,
so
Gary,
why,
here.
So why so much? Because mine was like 40-some bucks for everything. I mean, you know, of
Because
course.
it's a
Well, I
Silver
didn't
Age
have
book.
to, of course, because I didn't have to send it down there. That I saved on that postage, but I paid my postage back. And
Well, I'm
the
talking
grading.
about like the Amazing 39.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you get
the
Silver Age
first
Jones.
full black bolt, that kind of stuff. And he said it, after all the costs and stuff, you're talking between 100.
I forgot I had a modern age book. I guess you know you have a modern.
For
age
$120, I'm gonna go buy another Silver Age book.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, call me
Great
crazy,
point.
but I'm
No,
gonna
I
go buy
would call
one for me.
you sane.
Yes, and sensible.
There again, $30-$40 to grade a book
Yeah, that's
all
what I
day
did.
long.
That's what I
You
did.
know, to see if this book is a 9 or a 9.6 all day long, $30-$40. 120. Nah, they'll stay in the box. They'll stay in the Mylars. They're not. It's not changing anything.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like you said, Donnie. I'm not planning on selling them, so I can care
Right.
less
Yeah.
if they're graded or not. It's just a curiosity thing.
Mhm.
But it's not $120.
No.
It's not a need to know for that.
Well, even if you're, you know, even if you were to sell it, you got to remember you got to get what you think it's
Yeah.
worth, plus all that money you spent to get it graded too, though. You know,
Right.
I don't know.
And plus the whole thing with the 9.6s, 9.8s and stuff for first Wolverine's going for $10,000-$15,000. I'm like, since when? We've had this conversation before, but since when does it jump up to name your price $15,000 for a $3,000?
I see some of those low grade ones, like the key issues, like FF #1, something that are in really crappy shape, going for like. I mean, you know, listen, I'm not. If I'm going to invest $12,000 in a comic book,
Yeah.
no offense, because I love Tim, it's not going to be a Tim Lease model. It's just not going. It's
Exhibit A.
Yeah, it's.
Can you zoom in on this?
Am I right or wrong?
The goat read this.
Are you gonna get that? Are you gonna get that graded too?
It's already graded, man.
D-.
But you know what I'm saying? If you're going to get a book, holy smokes, there's no way. I mean, you know, it doesn't have a back cover, but you got FF #1. I don't think I want FF #1 without a back cover. I mean, you know, if I'm going, I mean,
Well, you
yeah.
guys know my stance
Yeah,
on
yeah.
that.
that has a back cover.
Well, yeah, but yeah, if you saw it, pay $3.50. Yeah, I'd pay $3.50.
I'm not going to give you $500
$1.
for Action #1, even though you'd probably get a whole lot more out of it if you sold it. I'm not giving you $500. I'm taking that $500 and spending on other books. I don't want a coverless book.
Right.
And no way, shape. The only thing is, it'll be like you. I'll take it all day long because I'm turning around and selling it.
Yeah.
But if I get Action #1, it's kind of got to have a cover.
I got an Iron Man 55 with the first appearance of Thanos. It doesn't have the cover, and half the book looks like it had been saturated and then dried out. And I got it right now on an auction. It's up to $30. It's like, I mean, that's great. I'm happy, but I would never consider paying $30.
You'll take their money.
Yeah, all day long.
Yeah.
And then again, if the market says that, then who am I to say?
Right.
You know, somebody wants to pay $15,000 for a 9.8 Hulk 181, and okay, we're just here doing a podcast,
You got a couple
offering
extra.
opinions.
You got a couple extra you getting rid of.
Yeah,
So there's the question. So anybody watching, why don't you message us and let us know what is the most that you, if you want to share, what's the most you've ever spent on a comic book? And did you feel like you got a good deal? Would you ever consider buying a book without a cover on it? And what would that book be? And what would your financial limit be of thinking that's worth it? Not to resell, but something you'd add to a collection. I would agree. I don't think I would add, like if I had a chance to get Fantastic Four #1 and I wasn't allowed to sell it, just to add it to my collection, I don't think I would spend hundreds of dollars. I mean, even a
I
few
don't-
$100
and
on a
FF
book without a cover.
#1,
Without a cover.
I don't think I'd give you more than $50 for it.
Without the cover.
Absolutely not. If you put one on the table right now, it's like I'll give you 50 for it. Anything 60? No, I'm not interested.
I'd probably.
I'm that hardcore when it comes
That's
to
fair.
coverless, worthless books. That is a worthless book. It's not even complete.
Yeah.
Why am I paying $5 for it?
For me, I guess it would go to, I mean, everything about this hobby is personal, and the idea of knowing that I owned it, even in part, would be worth a couple $100 to me. That book. Spider-Man, no, actually nothing else.
I think I would be okay, actually more okay with if it had like a coupon cut out of it or something there, or a piece of like a page, and even if it was missing some art in
You
the
have,
back.
you have some books and stuff. There.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
You had Batman. What was it? 2
Yeah.
or 3 that,
I had 3, Batman 3.
Batman
It had
3.
more tape on it.
Edition.
By
It
the
had
way,
more tape on it.
a big thumbs down if it's got Tim's friggin' phone number in the front. If that happens,
Excuse me, it's my mom and dad's phone number now. All right? let's get it straight.
I'm gonna, you know what though? I end up getting one of those FF1s. And I'm gonna open it and I'm gonna call your mom and be like, "Damn it, Mrs. Lease."
could you say that in the description of the CGC?
Yeah.
Tim Lee's pants full of
Rare short gap edition,
Short gap.
Short gap pedigree.
highly sought after,
West Virginia variant.
Tim Lee's collection.
indelible ink.
Yep. Short gap
Indelible.
pedigree. The
There's a little
famous short
sketch of
gap
a there's a
pedigree.
little sketch of a beetle on the back.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that is a beetle.
Oh,
Yeah. Smooshed beetle guts.
Oh,
Yeah,
That's great.
took a turn for the worse.
it did.
Did you guys ever? Speaking of, did you ever find any bugs or anything
Yeah,
in your
yeah.
collection?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it
I've-
starts to freak you out, doesn't it? It's
Yeah.
like, look out! I'm gonna
As
open
it
a box
spread
up
to
one
another
time and it's
box.
just gonna be sawdust.
I found bugs in other people's collections. I
Yeah,
opened
you
a
put
box.
them outside.
Yeah, I opened a box here over the summer, and when I opened it, I don't know, I didn't count, but thousands of fleas jumped out of it. And
oh.
I had to shut the whole place
Ooh.
down for a week and fumigate and all that.
Oh.
Yeah, it was awful. It was the worst. And I took
Yeah.
them all outside to air them out and whatnot, but
Want to get some sun?
that's always good for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take them out, let them bake in the
Yeah.
blistering heat.
tanning your fleas.
Oh, I was talking about the books. It's good for those too.
Oh.
Get them out there under the blazing heat on blacktop.
Yeah.
Oh,
They're not brittle. They soon will be.
Real quick before I forget, Walking Dead
Yeah.
reboot. Everybody
I'm down.
seems to be on board.
I'm
Yeah.
I think
Yeah. Yeah.
a lot of people that jump ship are now coming back because I just have one question and stuff, and maybe you guys can help me out here. Judith is what? How far are we ahead? 5, 6, 7?
5 or 6 years is what I thought.
I
Where's Rick?
surprised 6. Where is he?
You're telling me Rick, with the kind of character he was, and
Where
he
is
has, and he has Michonne, he has Judith.
He's on another coast, I bet you.
I'm just saying, where's Rick? Because I know the whole thing personally as an actor and stuff. He's walked away from it. Andrew Lincoln has walked away. He's going to do some movies and everything.
Yeah, that's what they-
Maybe they're going to explain it all somewhere, but the fact that he would have to be in a cement tomb at the bottom of the ocean not to get back to Alexander.
I don't know. I don't find it to be that crazy that he's not there in the sense that there's a million reasons why.
Well, like I said,
They
we'll
can-
find out, but
Yeah.
to me it's kind of strange because if he was alive, he would be back there.
Yeah, I mean we don't know
He's
these.
a very resourcevul guy.
Sure.
You know, he's made it this far and he's nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
Was that little boy that was in there? Is that Rick's son? Did you catch that at all?
What's that?
Oh, yeah, with Michonne?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Because she said, I thought she said she was pregnant right before it all went down.
Okay.
You know, what came running down the hallway.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Just checking in.
I've never seen a single episode of The Walking Dead, so
Did you read the comic?
no.
The
That's why you're wearing a fur hat.
I was all
Oh.
about. I was literally. It's like that
Yeah.
show was hanging
The
by
gray
a
hat.
thread. I'm just hanging on the edge, like you know what? I'm
I
gonna
stopped
let this
watching
go.
it.
And then I all of a sudden decided to pull it back up on the ledge and watch it, and it was. I mean, it's really
Yeah.
really good. Like I'm really looking forward to the next one.
Yeah.
That said, I'm not even. I'm gonna keep one set of them, but the Walking Dead compendiums. I got a set of all 3 of them, and yesterday I sat down and read the whole 3rd one. I mean, it just you can't stop. And then when it was over, I was like, damn it, because it leaves it
You need
right in this
more.
place where you needed more. And the guy brought in a couple trades, and it turns out he felt the same way I did and bought 4 5-issue mini trades that are the ones after that. So that'll be part of my day to
How
day.
far does that go up?
That goes from literally from issue 1 to 167, and then I have from 170 or so up. So
Where's that? It's approaching 200, isn't it?
Oh yeah. It is at 182. So yeah, there's about 20 issues after that trade. 25 issues, and I got most of those. So yeah, and the ones that I have, I mean, they're really, really used. So if anybody's watching and wants to come in and borrow it and read it,